This is me about to jump in an ice-cold lake to find a GoPro I lost 7 years ago. And although my suit may look cozy, trust me when I say that I'm about to freeze. But to understand why I would put myself through this, we have to go back to when I just turned 15. As an aspiring YouTuber who'd just scrounged up enough yard work and birthday money for a new GoPro, I was ecstatic to finally get my hands on a camera fit to capture my passion of extreme sports. The pinnacle of which for me was cliff jumping. So when it came time for our yearly family vacation and I got the chance to film jumping off of actual cliffs, it felt like the stars had aligned. I spent the entire first day capturing all the new tricks I wanted to try, and I even got my family to jump with me. Then, as this memorable day was coming to an end during my final jump, I came up out of the water and noticed my GoPro was no longer on my handle. My heart sank.
I'm always so scared that the GoPro is gonna somehow fall out, even though there's like no way.
I instantly went beneath the surface to see my beloved camera rapidly sinking with all of my footage. I swam down towards it as hard as I possibly could, and I kid you not, I will never forget this. My fingers grazed it. When I came up out of the water, as my mother put it, you would have thought someone had died. I don't remember if I cried, but everyone on that boat definitely got to see through my teenage tough guy persona. If you're wondering how I'm showing this footage with my GoPro lost at the bottom of a giant lake, well, I can explain. Once we figured out that the water was 65 feet deep and there was no chance of getting the camera, my mother, being the wonderful person that she is, drove me an hour to the nearest store where I got a new GoPro in the form of a loan from her. And the next day, in support of her heartbroken son, she let us return to all of the spots and film the jumps again. Mom, you're the best, and I hope that I've since paid you back. Although that trip turned out fine, my inner 15-year-old has always wondered if there was any way I could get that GoPro back. So when I was recently invited on a cliff jumping trip to Hawaii, I realized a few days before my flight that this could be my chance to learn to scuba dive and finally be able to search for it. I immediately drove to the nearest dive shop here in Kansas, which I did not expect to exist, and signed up for some lessons. I just signed up for scuba diving and I leave for Hawaii in 2 days. What am I doing, bro? Luckily, since it's 30 degrees out, they can get me in first thing tomorrow, but I still have to do the entire online class by tonight. I stayed glued to my computer until I completed the course in what had to be record time, and then left early the next morning for my final exam. Somehow, I passed on the first try, which meant all that was left to do before Hawaii was my pool dives. After getting in my wetsuit and putting on all the heavy gear for the first time, I knew I probably looked ridiculous, but I kind of felt like a Navy SEAL or something. It was pretty cool. When it was time to get in the water, I walked up to the deep end, did the giant stride they taught me, and was officially scuba diving. And although I was just sitting in a pool, the fact that I was breathing under the freaking water had me already starting to love this. The very next morning, I packed up my new scuba gear and set out on my 17 hours of travel. Long flights have never been my favorite, but as I was landing and I set my eyes on the bright blue water, I knew it was going to be worth it. Look at this place. Look at it. I feel like this whole place is one big flower. This is so sick. I arrived at the hotel just in time to catch the sunset and get a jet-lagged, mediocre half night of sleep before the rest of my training began. So it's my first morning in Hawaii, and I am learning to scuba dive today, but first I gotta fly to one of the other islands. Apparently, it's like the best for it. Let's do this. Once I'd landed yet again, my instructor got me from the airport, brought us straight to the boat, and after signing my life away, I was ready to do this for real. Oh my god, look at that. Look at that. Well, I guess here we go. Just gotta waddle over here in 3, 2, 1. To get my lifetime scuba certification, I needed to complete 4 separate dives. The first one started out with some basic skills on the surface, but then suddenly took a scary turn when I was told I had to go over 40 feet to the bottom. None of the things I learned in that 6-foot deep pool could prepare me mentally for this descent. After 20 minutes, half my oxygen tank, and difficulties fixing my intense ear pain from the pressure, I eventually made it and took my first step onto the sand. But since I took so long to get down, I had to go right back up. So that was the end of my first dive. I made it down faster during my second dive, but because of my ear pain, I was still a bit too slow, and I ended up stuck watching the other divers go get to play with a sea turtle. By the time I'd made it down and finished my drills, the turtle was gone. And since this was my last dive of the day, I realized that I'd missed my chance. Well, it's 6 a.m. and time for more scuba diving. I guess every diver gets up at the crack of dawn. Great! The next day came dive number 3. This time we headed to a beach where I'd be doing my first shore dive. Luckily, my ears felt completely fine today. I must have finally cleared my sinuses earlier. In less than 10 minutes under the water, we found some of the cast of SpongeBob, a giant school of fish, and whatever the heck this thing is. But just then, my instructor tapped me on the shoulder. Getting to swim right alongside these majestic creatures was surreal. I instantly forgot about anything that was worrying me as I watched them glide through the water right in front of my eyes. I was completely entranced. But during the mask draining exercise that followed, the worries came back. We were 20 feet underwater when I tried to drain my mask by blowing out of my nose, but I accidentally breathed in and began choking on the salt water. I eventually got all the water out of my mask, but not my throat.
How you feeling?
That's how I'm feeling.
So good.
So I had to go ahead and end dive number 3.
There were turtles playing with each other in there. Also, when I flooded my mask at the end, felt like I was gonna die for a second.
Yep.
But, cool.
But he killed it.
With all of my training tasks now complete, we got to spend our final dive just exploring and soaking it all in.
Your boy is scuba certified for life.
Woo!
And falling over as I epically get. Don't let your ego get too big.
I thought these were going to be my last dives in Hawaii, but knowing that I was going to be in a cold, dark lake soon made me want to get just a bit more practice by doing a night dive. And amid the boat ride out to the spot, I got a pretty good feeling I was going to get to see some new creatures. While there was still daylight, we went down to check out the underwater campfire area where we would hopefully get to see some giant manta rays later. Then, after venturing out to my new furthest depth of 65 feet, we actually came across a smaller one that came up to say hi.
Oh my god, that was so sick.
Once the sun had finished setting, I did my last descent of the trip and headed for the campfire. What I saw next was legitimately one of the most amazing things I've ever gotten to experience. A swarm of 7 absolutely massive mantas spanning up to 16 feet wide were flying just above our heads. The way they moved seemed as if they were putting on a well-rehearsed, harmonious performance. It was insane. Look, he just did a backflip! And they were so big that the force of their wing-like fins would knock me over when I wasn't holding onto a rock. The 30 minutes we got to spend with these angelic animals flew by, but it was certainly something that I will never forget. And I never thought I'd say this, but I think it topped the sea turtles.
Well, they said I couldn't fly for 18 hours after scuba diving. I hope this doesn't count.
I had to kill some time before I could fly to the cliff jumping island because apparently if you don't, you can get what's called decompression sickness. It happens when you undergo change in pressure too quickly, which causes nitrogen bubbles to form in your blood and other tissues. The symptoms of which aren't the best. It's for this reason that scuba divers have to come up and down really slowly. Thankfully, the pressure change from parasailing is minimal, which meant I was able to try it for the very first time.
This is insane. Let's see if a shark will come up and grab us. Really making me want to get my skydiving license right now. This is sick.
Once I was safe to fly again, I set out to meet up with my friends Ryan and Reagan. We traveled to the biggest island in Hawaii, and with the most land comes the most cliffs. We hit a few really fun spots over the first couple of days we spent together, but there was one located on the largely uninhabited southernmost tip of the island with a panoramic view of the ocean, and it's my favorite cliff jumping spot of all time. And with this being my first time coming back in over 5 years, to say I was excited is an understatement.
5 years later, same spot, same shorts, but better tricks. Let's do it. Yeah!
Although South Point was a blast and will always have a special place in my heart, there is one thing it doesn't have. And for that one thing, we would have to go to the other side of the island and start hiking. "45 minutes and some minor injuries later, we arrived. Or so we thought.
Yeah, that's a person. I don't think so.
This waterfall was way too big and completely inaccessible, but if we found one, surely there were others nearby.
Well, this is definitely the furthest I have gone out to jump off a cliff. Let's see if it's worth it.
Spoiler alert, it wasn't. It would have been if we just wanted a pretty spot to jump, but the real reason we came all the way out here was for the froth. No, not broth. The froth. It's the bubbly area where the weight of the falling water breaks up the surface and creates pockets of air, making for a far less painful landing. It's basically nature's foam pit, but to truly experience this effect, we were going to have to find a bigger waterfall. And after going on what we hoped would be our last hike, we hit the jackpot when we discovered a waterfall approximately 50 feet tall. The water was deep enough to jump off to the side, but we still needed to check directly under the falls if we wanted to land in the froth. That's where my scuba goggles came in clutch, and when I realized just how powerful a waterfall this size actually is.
It's so powerful, it's just crazy!
With the safety check complete, we made it back up to the top just as it began to rain, and before the rocks could get too slippery, I turned around on the uneven ledge and started the countdown.
3, 2, 1, I did a 45-foot double layout off a waterfall in Hawaii. It felt amazing. That was everything I dreamed of. Why can't there be waterfalls in Kansas? There's nothing in Kansas. We did it. Yes.
Well, I couldn't have asked for a better ending to such an amazing trip. Looking back at everything I got to do over this past week has left me feeling truly fortunate. And with my final mission just around the corner, I'm hoping that good fortune will stick around just a bit longer. But first, I want to tell you about the sponsor of today's video, Athletic Greens. AG1 by Athletic Greens has become one of the tools I use every morning to help me stay healthy as I carry on with my fast-paced lifestyle. Even if you're like me and prioritize eating as healthy as possible, there are still nutritional gaps that need some help to get filled. With 75 different ingredients, including vitamins, minerals, superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens, drinking AG1 helps me do more with less. Being simple and quick, it fits perfectly into my busy life, helping me prioritize health and well-being as I push myself to achieve more. It has energy-supporting ingredients from a natural form of B12, biotin, and magnesium, which has allowed me to eliminate coffee from my diet altogether. Plus, since it contains superfoods and other ingredients to help with muscle recovery, it's also been a huge asset as I continue on my fitness transformation journey. My favorite thing about AG1 is how incredibly convenient it is with just one scoop or a quick travel pack taking just a few minutes of my morning. You can click the link in the description or go to athleticgreens.com to get yours today. And Athletic Greens is giving you guys a free 1-year supply of immune supporting vitamin D and 5 travel packs free with your first purchase. And something I've learned recently, you can't put a price on your own health. After researching the depths of where I lost my GoPro, it seemed that luck was still very much on my side. The lake's deepest part is 220 feet deep. This part is 70.
I am gonna find this GoPro.
But there was still one major obstacle, finding someone willing to do this with me. I spent several days calling multiple dive shops and professional divers, but unsurprisingly, they all declined. The scuba diving man with 40 years of experience that sounded pretty promising just called me and said that the mission was too dangerous and that he needs to back out.
That should tell you something, son.
Regardless, I didn't make it this far just to abandon the dive and accept defeat. I was already in way too deep. And so, I dialed the number of the last pro scuba diver I'd been told about.
Hello?
Hey, is this Neil?
It is.
Hi Neil, this is Tanner Braungardt. This is the moment I realized just how absurd this plan was sounding coming out of my mouth. And so I was wondering if that sounds of any interest to you.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Okay, I think I'm gonna say yes.
Let's go! Heck yeah, man. Super excited. Well, sounds like I'm gonna be in a cold lake with a stranger. Well, the perseverance had paid off. But since Neil had holiday plans coming up, we only had a small window to make this happen. So I quickly learned how to use my dad's fishing boat and got fitted for the thickest wetsuit I could rent before we met the very next morning and got everything ready for the 5-hour road trip. Our plan was to stop for the night so that we'd be well rested for the expedition, but after getting the last hotel room available, I realized that I wasn't going to be able to sleep. It is entirely too early, and our Army veteran Scuba Pro has already left the room. He's waiting in the truck, and we're about to go get in this freezing cold water. And it's freezing outside. Great. There's number 26, that blue square. We're looking for number 25, so it means we're close. And I can't feel my fingers. We're not even in the water. Right there, that is the ledge I took off. So where it gets dark is the old water level, and that is why you always check under where you're jumping. Oh my god. Man, that would really impale you, wouldn't it? You would die.
So I gotta ask, are you really a scuba diver if you don't scuba dive in November?
That's true. Are you? You're probably just a smart one. This is what we're gonna bring the GoPro back in. Hopefully. Let's go.
Holy cow.
Alright, so he is in a dry suit, so only his hands and a little bit of his face are wet. Everything else on him is dry in his suit. Everything on me is gonna be wet because this is a wetsuit. I'm not qualified to use one of those, so it's gonna be a little worse for me. Oh, it's already cold. Oh, it's so cold. Oh man, this is gonna suck. Alright, well, before I put all my scuba gear on, might as well hit the cliff jump, right? Actually, by hitting the cliff jump, I'll know exactly where I landed last time, and then we'll just go straight down from there. Woo! 3, 2, 1. Well, it took 7 years, but I was finally doing it. Aside from the freezing temperature, we felt optimistic right off the bat because the bottom was made up of rocks like we had hoped. Everything was covered in grime, but it was still better than something like mud where we'd probably never stand a chance. We laid a line across the area where I had landed and began searching back and forth, slowly going down. The first thing we came across, despite checking before I jumped, was another giant pointed tree a few feet away from where I just landed. If any of you go cliff jump, I hope that you'll be smarter than me. I also hope you'll be smarter than what seems to be cliff jumping's main demographic, the drunken uncles. You know, the same guy that dumped the tubing children at 60 miles an hour. By the looks of it, I think everybody had the same uncle. As we began to get deeper, the light and visibility was starting to get worse, but I did get to see one fish, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but it definitely topped the manta rays. Then I saw this log that I thought was a giant animal about to kill me. By now, we'd already been searching for about 45 minutes, and although I was really cold, that wasn't the main issue. We had descended to the point of complete darkness, and to make matters worse, there was way more grime down here, which made it impossible to see even an inch in front of us. I couldn't see or communicate with Neil in any way at this point, and I'm not gonna lie, it was pretty terrifying. While trying to remain calm and rational in this very unfamiliar circumstance, I realized that the visibility wouldn't improve unless I stopped stirring up the dirt. So in an effort to do that, I did what I was trained to do by adding a little bit of air to my vest until I began to lift up. But since I couldn't see anything, I didn't realize that I had put in too much air. And because air expands as pressure is alleviated, I began to rise faster and faster until I popped up at the surface in a matter of seconds. I'm guessing the sudden change in pressure ended my GoPro recording, but I do have Neil's perspective after he ascended at a safe rate.
I inflated my VCD too much, and then I couldn't see anything, and then all of a sudden I was at the top. Thankfully it wasn't that deep. How deep were we?
41 feet.
41 feet? Jesus. Yeah, my chest hurts a little bit.
How dangerous is it to come up that fast?
Pretty dangerous.
Because I kind of hurt. Like, I don't know what I should do. My fucking chest hurts.
What I would be concerned about is an air embolism. When you come up too fast, if you're not breathing, you can rupture your lungs. How bad is it?
It's not that bad of pain. It's not the worst. I should probably.
You want to get out?
Yeah.
See what happens?
Yeah.
The chest could also be because you're cold.
Yeah, that's true. Like, I literally got this feeling, like, as I was coming up and I was lost, I was like, dude, is this how I die? Like, where am I going? Like, this, I genuinely thought that. I was freaking out.
That's scary.
Well, I guess it's successful because I didn't die, but he's still gonna search for a couple hours down there. Maybe we'll come away with the GoPro, but I'm not getting back in. Once I was out of my wetsuit and finally got warmed up, we waited eagerly until Neil resurfaced with the verdict.
Let me hand this up to you. There are some goodies in there, but mostly trash.
That's up to you. If you're too cold, then we can get out and we can head back.
Well, I'm starting to get pretty cold.
Yeah.
So hands, I mean, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
I feel bad we didn't find it.
Well, I guess there you have it. Despite all of our time spent training, coming here, and giving it our best shot, we were just going to have to accept defeat and let my younger self down. Or at least that's what I thought until Neil said something suspicious.
Well, I don't know. You can go through that. There's a couple of, okay, maybe 2 neat things in there.
Okay, let's check out the neat things. And that's when I realized that he had pulled the greatest prank of all time. JK, yeah, we didn't find it. But hey, let's see what's in the bag of goodies anyway. What do we got?
We got a pair of shades. Disgusting flop.
Oh my god.
It's rock hard. A nice water shoe.
Ooh.
A nice old looking.
Cool. Kind of artsy. At least we did a little bit of a cleanup.
I almost lost another GoPro for you.
Oh yeah?
It slipped off.
Oh shoot. There we go. I'll just use that footage. We found it. Oh yeah, that's pretty cool. Definitely the coolest thing.
Rusted shut.
New title. 7 years ago, I lost my favorite knife, and we found it. All jokes aside, of course, I would have loved to find the GoPro and see if the footage was somehow still on it, but how could I be bummed when this video idea has allowed me to hang out where humans shouldn't even be able to go, in what literally feels like another dimension. Scuba diving is something I was definitely intimidated by in the beginning, but I'm very thankful I didn't turn back, and I'm looking forward to doing it again as soon as possible. Just maybe not in this. But for now, I'm going to be spending most of my time on land because I've got some good news. I am finally opening my trampoline gym to the public. That's right, you're finally going to be able to come jump and hang out at the flip pad. For our business hours and more information, just visit tburger.com or follow the flip pad on Instagram. Woo! With that said, thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one or at the flip pad. Let's go!